Hey, hey, hey! Welcome back to Melinda's Messy Sink. Tonight we are going to be canning red raspberry preserves. What you'll need is red raspberries. You're gonna need sugar, some butter, and some pectin, or they call it Sure-Gel. You buy these boxes at the grocery store. Inside each box comes with directions on how to make all different kinds of jellies, preserves, jams in the freezer by cooking. So you find the chart that you need. We will be using the cooked jam recipe. In this recipe, when it comes to jams and jellies, if you have tons and tons of fruit, you have to cook in the amounts that the recipe calls for. You can't double the recipe just because you have more fruit. You have to work in batches or your jelly or jam will not set up. Also, you're going to use a non-reactive pan for your jellies as well. Okay, so the first thing that we're gonna do is we are going to measure out a batch of ingredients to make our jam, preserves, whatever you want to call it. According to the directions, we need 5 cups of red raspberries and we need 7 cups of sugar. What we've done so far is we measured out our sugar. We're going to set it to the side. We measured out our red raspberries and we also rinsed them off. We are going to add our red raspberries to this pan. You might get a little stained. Thankfully, I have red fingernail polish on. Okay, so now I use a potato masher, but you could use whatever that you want, and you're going to smash your berries. And you kind of got to put a little bit of muscle in them to get them started, but then once they get going, it goes pretty quickly. Now, in our raspberry preserves, we do not worry about the seeds. If you want to get rid of the seeds, then you'll need to send them through a sieve to where all of the juice will come out, but the pulp and the seeds will stay in the container. We just make the preserves with the berries and the fresh fruit pieces. We make them all together. But this is what it starts to look like. All right, my husband has crushed these red raspberries. The directions say to add 1 package of our Sure-Gel or pectin. We're gonna stir this to combine. If you look in here, you'll see that there's pieces of red raspberries. So this is not smooth like jelly. All right, we're gonna turn our heat on. Our directions say that we are going to let this come up to a rolling boil. And they define rolling boil as a boil that does not stop bubbling when stirred on high heat and stirring consistently. So I've got my burner on and we're just going to bring this up to a hard boil. All right, do you guys see that it's boiling? But whenever I stir, it stops boiling. So it needs to go further. We are definitely boiling even though that I am stirring. So next step, we are going to add all of our sugar that we pre-measured out. We're gonna add all of it in to the pan. And then we're gonna combine. And this is gonna get really thick. All right, got our sugar mixed in there, and now we're just gonna keep on stirring until that comes back up to that hard boil again. We are back to that hard boil. So now, My husband is gonna set the timer for 1 minute, and I am going to stir. I am going to stir constantly for that 1 minute. In addition, we need to water bath these. And so what that means is that we are going to fill these jars, and then we're going to submerge them in water. I have that water pot going now so that it'll be ready by the time we get ready for it. All right, one last thing that we need to do is see how that is getting frothy, like how it's getting foamy. We are going to add 1 tablespoon of butter, and it will help decrease that froth. Okay, our minute's up, so we're gonna take it off the heat. All right. We took this off the heat, and we put that butter in there, and we're just kind of stirring around. And it doesn't get rid of all the froth, but it does get rid of quite a bit. So what we do is we usually take like a Tupperware container and just skim the top to get that froth off. You're never going to get it all off, but you can get some of it off. And when you're dying to know what your jelly tastes like, we put this in the refrigerator, and when it cools off, we'll have a preview of what our jelly's like. My husband has been working on the lids, the rings, and the jars. The jars have been sitting in hot water to avoid putting hot liquid in a cold jar and the jar cracking. We have our raspberry preserves or jam, whatever you want to call it. We have them in tightened jars. Now my husband is going to move them to this basket, and then we're going to show you how we water bath. This basket is going to go down into hot water, not rolling boil like what we just did, but a gentle simmer of hot water for 10 minutes. All right, our jars have finished in the water bath. We are going to use a tool, these tongs, to get them out of the water bath, and then they are going to sit on this gray towel overnight. Okay, we're going to let these sit here. Did you notice how my husband spaced them out, didn't put them right next to each other? This is to allow them to cool and the air to circulate between them. You will hear little pops as these start to seal. But what we're doing for now is just gonna leave them sit until tomorrow. All right, guys, it's the next morning, and our jars have been sitting out all night. And what we're gonna do now is check to make sure that they all sealed. Okay, sorry guys, my tripod just broke. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go through and check to make sure that all of our jars sealed. And what you do is you just press on the top of them to make sure that there's no movement in the lid or there's no popping sound. So the jar that I showed you, or the box of raspberries that we started with yesterday, turned into 15 jars of red raspberry preserves. And it looks like that everything's sealed. All right, so next what I do is I would take like a Sharpie marker and I would write on the lid of what this is and then the year that we canned it. Sorry this is ending weird because it's in my hand instead of on a tripod, but just wanted to thank you guys so much for following along as we made red raspberry preserves to last us throughout the year. Don't forget, Jesus loves you. I'll see you in the next one.